We're here for another St. Olaf Fall Sports update. Today we're joined by head football coach James Kilian. James, thanks for taking a few minutes to update us on the fall this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So obviously the pandemic has changed the way we've done athletics at St. Olaf this fall. Just fill us in on what the football team has been able to do so far with practices, lifts, meetings, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We were able to get on the practice field 13 times this fall. And the benefit to us was that those were all padded practices, okay, as you would expect. And so unfortunately, we weren't able to play any games, and our guys understood that. We were able to get the practices in. We were able to install our different schemes on different sides of the football, and the opportunity to evaluate our first-year players to make sure that we have them in the right position, make sure we could evaluate the schemes that we are implementing to make sure they fit our personnel. So those were huge benefits to us as a coaching staff and as a program.
Then how did the pandemic change the way you were able to practice and interact with your student athletes as a coaching staff?
Yeah, so all of our meetings had to be on Zoom or over the computer, which is unfortunate, right? But that's just the best we could do. And then the first half of our practices, we had to be in pods of, I think we're in pods of 12. We integrated those pods so we could, offensive line could go against defensive linemen, running backs versus linebackers, wide receivers versus DBs, so on and so forth. So that allowed us to do some group work together and do some pod work together. Unfortunately, it limited us in terms of what we could do offenses versus defense as a team because we couldn't get all those pods together. And then our last 6 practices, we were able to be into pods of 30. Okay, so then that really allowed us to then function like we normally would. So we could do Skelly versus a defense. We could do inside run versus a defense. Or offense as a defense, and then we can actually get some full team reps. So we got a chance to do some situation stuff, work on some 1st and 10, 3rd and long, 3rd and short, things like that. Those were huge benefits to us that we had to put a lot of thought into how we were putting our pods together. And it's something that we had kind of, as coaches, kicked around and thought about on, really for over a month, maybe, making sure that we were, putting it together. I think initially conventional wisdom would be like, well, you just put all your offensive guys in one pod and all your defensive guys in one pod. But as we thought about it a little bit more, it's like, we want those guys to be able to go against each other. So that was the idea behind that. Not being able to meet as a team, not even able to meet as a unit in person was not ideal. But I think our guys responded very well. We had been doing Zoom meetings throughout the summer. And so I think guys were accustomed to that and used to this medium that we're using. And then our hope is, fingers crossed as we move forward, certainly as we get to next fall, that this will be behind us.
How do you think the student athletes adjusted to all the changes in how you practice and that sort of thing this fall?
I just, in terms of my conversations with them and then how they're doing in school and things like that, I would say that they adjusted very well. I think if you would have asked them, or if they would have known the situation that they were coming into, none of them really would have been excited about it, or really, especially for our first year players, they probably wouldn't have wanted to do it. But as we talked to them, and as I had my player meetings at the end of the year, I just asked them to look back of coming here, testing, isolating, quarantining for 2 weeks. In their dorm rooms, why we had a little bit of a spike in the heat with no air conditioning, not able to get outside when they want to, and then where we are today, right? And what they were able to do, get out on the field, run around, practice, where we could even work out in the weight room. Again, we stayed in our pods. We made that work. So all the adjustments that they made, their ability to adjust and adapt, and to look back and see all the things that they overcome should give them a lot of confidence that they can do a lot more than what they think they can, right? And that's as I tell them, that's really what life is about. Like, you don't know what's going to be around the next corner, but you can look back on your life experiences and see all the things that you've overcome and have the confidence that no matter what life throws at you, you have the resources, the skills, the mindset to overcome.
And I'm sure recruiting has been a whole different ballgame than it usually is. How has that been going, and how have you adapted to doing that during the pandemic?
Yeah, so we, like everything that we would do in our program, we try to, take the best approach that we can. I think that as we embarked on this pandemic and everybody was dealing with it from a personal basis, family, business, teams, whatever it may be, people that had a plan or that had some, prior experience in dealing with adversity and how to overcome it, I think got stronger. Companies, organizations, teams that were not strong and not well connected were adversely affected. So the way we approach recruiting is going back all the way to the spring, because we were in our spring recruiting at that time. So everything shifted to Zoom. We elected not to do like full virtual junior days that lasted several hours. Okay. What we chose to do is we didn't know how long the pandemic would last. Fingers crossed it was not going to be that long, right? So what we did in March and April basically was we just did head coaching meetings. And then from there, we progressed. The next group of meetings we did via Zoom were position group meetings. And then we did player panel meetings. So our recruits got to get on a call with our players. And then fortunately, when we got into July, we were able to bring students on campus, basically on an individual basis, right? And then we could meet with them, and I was able to meet with them outside. So we had a 4-week run where we had almost 100 families visit campus. Okay, so I sat underneath a shade tree for about 8 hours a day meeting with families. I know the grounds crew got a little perturbed at me at one point because they wanted to mow by Porter Hall, and I'd been there all day for a month. So I had to concede and move for a little bit so they could get that area done. But we were able to really bring all those recruits along to, hey, you've seen everything in our campus, you've met with our players, you've met with me, and with early action and early decision now, we've had we had over 100 families on campus. Right now we're sitting at 18 commits, and we're going to have probably, I would guess upwards of 50 applications completed by the early decision and early action deadline that's here, on November 15th. So we're way ahead of where we've been, but I think it's because of all the work we did on the front end and getting ahead of it and not throwing our hands up and complaining that, oh, what are we going to do? Campus isn't open. We just came up with a plan that we thought would work best for us, that would give us the flexibility to continue Zoom meetings throughout the summer if we had to. But if campus opened up sooner, then we could just still do our junior days as we wanted. So I'm optimistic that this will be one of our bigger classes. Last year, we brought in 35 new players. I am really optimistic that we'll bring in more than that. And it's a testament to, our coaches, our assistant coaches is doing the work in recruiting, our players that we're living locally to help us out during those summer visits. We would take them downtown to the Veterans Square to show them the Eagle, and then walk along the river and give a little downtown tour as well. And then we got the chance to meet with a lot of moms and dads. So we're optimistic as we really turn our focus 100% into recruiting. And as we were in this fall, prior to different years when we had a season, this was more football and recruiting simultaneously and putting an emphasis on recruiting. And I think we'll see the fruits of our labor here come January, February, March.
All right. Thanks for taking the time to fill us in on how the football team's been going this fall, and we'll check in again at some point soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.